You ate something cooked today. Toast, coffee, a fried egg, a bowl of pasta. You did not think about it, because cooking your food is the most ordinary thing in the world. Here is what should stop you. You may only be able to have that thought, the one about how ordinary it is, because a distant ancestor of yours started cooking. Not because cooking is a nice thing that clever humans invented once they already had big brains. The other way around. There is a serious case that you have a big brain at all because something in your lineage learned to cook almost 2 million years ago. And the evidence for it is not sitting in an ancient kitchen. It is sitting in a skeleton. Around 1.9 million years ago, a new kind of human appeared, called Homo erectus, and its body was strange. Compared to everything before it, it had small teeth, a small jaw, weak chewing muscles, and a gut that had shrunk. It also carried a markedly bigger brain. One of the most complete of these skeletons, a boy who died beside a marsh in what is now Kenya about 1.5 million years ago, is tall, long-legged, and narrow through the hips, built around a belly far smaller than any ape's. Put those traits together, and you have a problem. A big brain is enormously expensive to run. A small gut is worse at wringing energy out of raw food. So here is an animal that needed more fuel than ever, while carrying the equipment to extract less of it. That combination should not survive. Something had to be making its food easier to digest before it ever reached the stomach. The body had committed to soft, pre-processed food almost 2 million years before anyone can dig up a kitchen to prove it. The person who made the boldest case for what that something was is a Harvard anthropologist named Richard Wrangham. His argument is simple and hard to shake. The one thing that pre-processes food outside the body is cooking. Heat breaks down the fibers in meat and swells the starch in plants, so the body spends less to digest a meal and gets more back from it. Cooking is external digestion. And once you can digest food outside yourself, you can afford a smaller gut and a bigger brain. So the reversal is this. We did not invent cooking because we were smart. We may have become smart because we cooked. There is a clean piece of logic underneath this, worked out in 1995 by two researchers, Leslie Aiello and Peter Wheeler. In primates, brain tissue and gut tissue are both metabolically expensive, and an animal that grows, one tends to shrink the other. You cannot easily pay for both. A gorilla runs a huge gut and a modest brain. A human runs a huge brain and a modest gut. To flip from the first to the second, you need a way to get rich calories without a large, fermenting gut to break down raw plants. Cooking is that way. It also buys time. A chimpanzee spends around 6 hours a day just chewing. You do not, because your food arrives softened and broken down before it reaches your teeth. Those are hours and calories that a cooking animal can spend on something other than digestion. You can test a piece of this against the present. Modern people who eat only raw food, even with blenders and year-round supermarket produce, tend to struggle to keep weight on. And in one long-term study, a large share of the women stopped menstruating. If a raw diet strains a modern body that has every advantage, a wild raw diet could not have powered a growing brain 2 million years ago. The raw food human is not some natural state we fell away from. It is a state we cannot actually live in. Now the honest part, because this is where it gets harder to prove. If cooking reshaped the body by nearly 2 million years ago, we ought to find fire that old. Mostly, we do not. The oldest widely accepted evidence for controlled fire comes from a cave called Wonderwerk in South Africa. In 2012, a team led by Francesco Berna found burned bone and ashed plant deep inside it, about 1 million years old, too far into the cave to have blown in from a wildfire. That is fire, deliberately used, but it is still a good deal younger than the body change it is meant to explain. Just this year, new work at the same cave pushed possible traces of fire back further, toward 1.79 million years, though even the researchers call it managed fire, gathered from the landscape, and not proof that anyone was cooking with it. Fire is not the same as cooking. A fire can warm you, hold off predators, or burn your refuse. To show cooking, you need food that was deliberately heated. The oldest solid case for that comes from a waterlogged site in Israel called Gesher Benot Ya'aqov. In 2022, a team including Irit Zohar and Naama Goran Inbar reported the teeth of large carp there, about 780,000 years old, that had been heated to a low, controlled temperature, not scorched in a blaze, cooked, warmed slowly at the sort of heat you would use on purpose to make a fish easier to eat. It is the earliest moment we can point to and say, with confidence, someone here prepared a meal rather than just lit a fire. So line the dates up and the gap is obvious. The body of a cooking animal by nearly 2 million years ago. The oldest clear fire, around 1 million. The oldest clear meal, around 780,000. Wrangham knows this and admits it is the weak point in his case. His answer is that fire this old rarely survives to be found. His critics have a different answer. In 2016, Catherine Zink and Daniel Lieberman showed you do not necessarily need fire to shrink a jaw. Simply slicing meat and pounding roots with a stone tool, both well within reach of our ancestors, cut the chewing effort by roughly a fifth. Their reading is a two-step story. Simple processing shrank the teeth first, and cooking finished the job later. That may be the most honest version. The body was moving towards soft food long before the first kitchen, and cooking may have been the powerful last step rather than the whole cause. Step back, and the shape of it is startling. Cooking is the first time an animal moved a part of its own body outside itself. Digestion normally happens in the gut. A cooking animal does some of it in advance, over a fire, before anything is swallowed. That one move freed up energy the body no longer had to spend, and hours it no longer had to chew, and it poured both into the most expensive organ we own. Your brain runs on roughly a fifth of everything you eat. It is very hard to see how you could feed it on a raw diet of wild plants and stringy meat. Long before farming, long before writing, a fire and a piece of meat may have been the thing that made all the rest of it possible. So the next time you stand over a stove, understand what the stove actually is. It is not a convenience your clever ancestors finally got around to inventing. It may be closer to the reason they became clever at all. You're doing outside your body what nearly every other animal has to do inside it, and you have been doing it, as a species, for something like 2 million years. The meal is old, the habit is older, and the brain you're using to find this mildly interesting was quite possibly paid for a very long time ago by someone learning to hold food over a flame. Every study and every site behind this video is linked in the description.